It's time to have a pretty serious conversation, and what we're going to be talking about is 3 things that might not be progressing you in your cybersecurity journey, but if you do these things, then you will progress. And I'm going to talk exactly about why we're having this conversation, and we're going to talk about all of that right now. So why do we need to have this conversation, and why do we need to have this conversation right now? I've been seeing so many examples of these 3 things not happening out there, and more specifically, I've seen these things not happen on social media because of course, and I really think that it's important that we address them. Personally, I think that it would be a disservice to you if I didn't speak up. And that's not to say that I have all 3 of these things, or really any of these three things figured out for myself. I'm working on each one of these things just as much as I hope you are. However, I want to make sure that I am sharing them because they are important and they do make a difference in whether or not you're progressing in your cybersecurity journey or not. And really more than just that, and you'll see why here in a minute. So what happens if we don't do these things? Well, one, I mean, we see a lot of fights and hatred going on the internet. And really, if you're not doing these things, then you may inadvertently be contributing to it, or even directly. Truthfully, nobody's anonymous on the internet, no matter what that Reddit post told you. Also, you want to learn from the best. You want to be the best, so you should be learning from the best. You should be learning from people that are real and genuine. And unfortunately, I see incidents where people, they don't realize that they're not doing this. They think that they're doing that, but they aren't vetting their people, and they're following people that really might be taking them down the wrong way. And I know you heard that and you think, give me some tea. I'm not giving you any tea. No. Another point is we live in an age and in a generation and in an era where instant gratification is kind of the norm and it is expected. You have mediums like TikTok and Instagram that will give you what you want very quickly. And if your attention isn't held within 30 seconds, on average, folks, they swipe to the next thing. And so oftentimes you'll see on social media, people will either emphasize specific things, or they'll blow up a specific conversation, or they will exaggerate things to make it look more flashy. And we need to be able to discern when that's happening. And so that's one of the things we're going to be talking about. But really, it takes time to make it happen in this industry. And so we're going to talk about why time is important as well. But the very first thing that I want us to talk about is about being kind and being an ethical person. Whether you knew it or not, people talk, employers talk, and potential employers know way more about you than you may actually realize. For instance, your internet profile, whether you think you're anonymous or not, it might actually be tied to you in another way that employers might realize who you are. If your internet profile is demonstrative of hatred, or it's demonstrative of really just not being a nice person, or you're feeding into certain things that people will not see as ethical, then employers will know. And if you're in a position where you're wanting to get into cybersecurity, this is a field where ethics are very important. These things matter. And if employers cannot trust you to be a good person, an ethical person, then you might have a lot of trouble getting into your first position, or your second, or your third. And beyond that, it's really just the right thing to do is be an ethical and a kind person. Heck, there's enough negativity and evil out there in the world. Do you really want to be a part of that? People remember their experiences. And if their experience with you is negative, and you're really on the dealing end of that negative experience, they'll remember. So instead of having them remember a negative experience, try to have them remember a positive experience where you were uplifting and you were kind and you were helpful. That really will go a long way. You'll never know when you might encounter that person again, but really with the internet, you might encounter them again, and that might be something very helpful for you. And really, being ethical and kind goes much farther than just doing that in public. In fact, really most of it happens behind closed doors, or when you do not think that people are looking. What really matters is what's in the heart. And if you are allowing rot to foment, really spread out, and where you're lashing out against other people, that's something that people will see. Make sure you stay to the end, because I have an extra resource that might be helpful. But now we're going to go to point number 2, and that is to be careful of who you follow and who you allow to speak over your career. Now, this might come as a shock, but not everybody you follow on social media is legit. And this is not to sow seeds of suspicion or doubt, or make you, kind of start questioning everybody. because that's not what I'm trying to get at. It's really ultimately on you to be able to vet who you're following and vet the people that you are deciding to listen to progress your cybersecurity career. Heck, if you vet me and you decide, you know what, I don't think that you're the kind of person that I want to have speak over my career, that's fine. More power to you. I'm happy that you're doing that vetting. Seriously, a lot of people aren't, and that's frightening. So really, what am I talking about here? If somebody identifies themselves as an expert, you need to do some digging to verify that. Specifically on social media, you'll encounter real experts, in specific areas, and the term that you might either have had some exposure to, or you might in the future, is subject matter expert. But you'll encounter these people in real life, and when you do, you'll know it, because they will speak, they may speak 1,000 miles a minute, and the information will be just so thick, you'll have to kind of rewind, be like, I need you to speak like about 50% slower so I can digest what you're saying. And you will learn so much from them. And I see this so many times where you'll see folks, basically on social media and other places say that they're an expert, and there's really nothing to back that up. And it's like they're throwing candy out, trying to attract followers. One of the other things that I keep seeing is if you're following somebody that isn't being very receptive to feedback, maybe they act in a very hostile manner, or maybe they're constantly getting in all these kinds of like petty beefs. Like, that's not good. That's not really helpful or wholesome or anything like that. And for some of that, if you're really wanting to vet if somebody is an ethical or a kind person, you might have to do more digging than just scrolling on what they've tweeted and more on what they've commented or if they've even DM'd you in the past, because a lot of the negativity happens but where they don't think that they're being watched. Sometimes people think that in the comment sections of a tweet that they have less visibility to the rest of Twitter than if they were to just tweet it out or retweet it. But that's not true. You can see comments on Twitter just like anything else. And so in going through somebody's comments and you're seeing that they're just constantly commenting, hateful things, or they receive some feedback and they respond back by just clapping back at that person, that's really not a good sign, and you want to be very careful about that. We just had that red flag meme, so picture those red flags where it's like, receives feedback, claps back, and doesn't take any feedback. Yeah, that's red flag city right there. Really, you need to not turn to fools in search of wisdom. You will not get clean in a mud pit, and you need to make sure that you are being diligent about seeking true wisdom and not folly. And especially if you're in the beginning phases of your cybersecurity journey, this can be incredibly hard because a lot of this might seem very technical. But again, and I've harped on this before, both on social media and other videos and on the Cyber Monday show, hit the fundamentals. If you have a grasp on the fundamentals, then you can start to discern, when someone's legit and when someone's just talking. Because they might be talking about an area that, is a little bit higher, a little bit more advanced. But again, if these things have to be tied to fundamental concepts, and if they aren't, if they're really just kind of, contradicting some of those fundamentals that you've learned, that's kind of something that you need to be considering. Now, I want to make sure that I'm capping this point off by saying that I am not an expert in anything. And honestly, I do not think that you should come to me for career advice. I'm still early in my cybersecurity career as is. Now, you might be in the same position as me, or you might be even a little bit earlier in your cybersecurity journey than me. That's excellent. In fact, I think that's so excellent that I want you to be sure that you shouldn't let anybody talk down to you or disparage the position that you're in right now. Again, and I've seen, people with large followings do this, where if someone that has a valid criticism or a valid piece of feedback that doesn't have a lot of followers, maybe they're just breaking into InfoSec and they're still kind of finding their way, and they provide some valid feedback to this person, and then they respond back by really just slamming them and saying like, you're not qualified to give me that feedback. Again, that's not a good sign. And if you see this happen to somebody else, you should take that for what it is. You have a vantage point and experiences that nobody else has, and that has incredible value. And so don't let anybody talk down to you about it. Don't let anybody try to discredit you for it. It's yours. Now, third and finally, trust the process. This is a long, arduous journey. Again, and I talked in the very beginning about instant gratification. This industry is not necessarily the best if you're very, driven by instant gratification, because this stuff takes time. In fact, this point is just as much for me as it is for anybody watching this video. In fact, all three of these points are just as much for me as they are for anybody. In fact, really, that's why I'm making this video, is because I've been thinking a lot about this for myself, and I wanted to share it with you in case you have any thoughts and feedback on your end. Keep learning, keep looking for ways to grow, keep seeking wisdom, and then be patient and you'll be fine. Now, there's a quote from Sean Cannell that I want to make sure that I hit on, because I keep reminding myself about it and I keep just sucking about it. Do not compare your beginning to someone else's middle. We're all in different phases of our cybersecurity journey. And so if you're comparing, yourself to some of just the John Hammonds of the world or the Stokes of the world, they are much further progressed in their career than me, for instance. And they're much further progressed in certain areas of cybersecurity than me. And so it's really, not good for your mental health if you're constantly comparing yourself, and that's gonna wear you down and eventually cause burnout. And that sucks, that really does. And I don't want that to happen to you, so please just take that advice. Now, we just talked about a lot, and I think it's very important. So if this was helpful for you, please do share it with a friend, because I guarantee you there are people in your circle that they're dealing with this just as much as you and I. And so sharing it out there, getting word out, and really that'll invite more feedback if any of these things are, if you catch anything that I said here that maybe you don't agree with, or maybe you're looking for some clarification on, let's enrich in this conversation and let's just really develop the discussion here. Now, because I really do believe that we need to be ethical in our journey, one of the first videos that I made was about ethics in cybersecurity. And I think that you should watch that right here. See ya.